speaker is, let me get it, is Pere Pons from Universitat de Girona. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Imma. Good afternoon. I will talk about a topic that has not been discussed so far today, is about what we do with forests once they have burned. And I will start by introducing our research team. It's called PECAT, and this team is located at the University of Girona. Our main research topics are about the biology of invasive species, biological risk assessment, the conservation of animal species, plant-animal interactions, mostly seed dispersion, and also, and especially, fire ecology. More or less half of the members of the team are involved in fire ecology studies since we started in 1996. And we have done some studies about the dynamics of animal populations after fire, also in bird communities. We also are using cicada species as models for population resistance and dispersion. And the topic I would like to talk today is the effects and how to manage burn forest. So we have seen in different presentations today the fire as a disturbance. These fires can be studied at the temporal or at special scales. But now we have a very common second disturbance that takes place during the first 2 years, usually, after fire. That is the salvage logging, the logging of the burned trees to recoup the economic losses because of fire. And many studies have shown that this salvage logging has severe impacts on the soil because of compactation, erosion, and loss of fertility. Also problems with plant regeneration after salvage logging, decrease in carbon sequestration of the ecosystem, damage to water courses by the machinery. And in general, there can be a loss of biodiversity and a loss of ecosystem services that are provided by this biodiversity. And in the case of Catalonia, the timber from the barn forest is used, especially as biomass. It is exported for the production of electricity. It is also used locally for heating. Some of this timber can be used in sawmills, especially for the pellets industry. And when this timber comes from oaks, it can be also used as a firewood. You have here 2 examples of 2 recent wildfires in Catalonia that have been intensively managed for timber. And I would say that this is not only a severe disturbance, but is also a large scale disturbance, because there are several studies that show that, for example, in Barcelona region, in only 30 years, more than 4 million cubic meters of timber have been harvested from burnt forest. And in Girona, in only 7 years, more than 3,000 hectares of burnt forests have been logged. So I think it's a large scale issue. And our team started to study the effects of wildfire, but then we moved, and we are now mostly focused on the effects of post-fire salvage logging. We have produced 3 PhD theses by the moment and 1 in progress, other academic reports. We have website of the Proyecto Anifoc, our current research project, funded by the Ministry of Science, Spanish. And we also regularly spread our results in scientific congresses, in workshops, or transfer meetings like today, and also in conservation forestry or ecology journals. So to give you one idea of some of our results, very summary, we have seen that post-fire logging usually is detrimental for animals, but it also can be positive in the short term for open habitat birds, for example, that are species that are threatened at the European scale. This is especially true if piles of branches are built when the barn forest is logged. So we have some benefits for biodiversity and ecosystem services. For example, we found more species of frugivorous bird when there are more density of piles of branches like the ones we can see in the picture. Then there are more seeds dispersed by these birds, and there we find a higher cover or fleshy fruit plants inside the piles, on the piles, than outside the piles. We also found higher rodent abundance when these piles were built, and more acorns are predated or dispersed by these rodents. So just some examples of what can be our results in original research results, but we also did a review of scientific and technical documents about the impacts of salvage logging after fire, and together with the feedback with the forest sector, we produce a handbook of good practices for the management of Mediterranean burn forest. This handbook was published in 2016 in Catalan and Spanish, and now, after some feedback, we did a meeting with the forest sector, and we have some critics and some feedback, and we are preparing a second edition for the next year that we'll have also an English version. And now we are trying to test some of the recommendations of this handbook in an experimental area in Blanes that was burned by a wildfire. We have located several plots with 3 different treatments. One is the non-intervention. We do nothing with the forest after fire. So we have several plots with non-intervention. The second one is sustainable logging. So we are cutting the trees according to some of the recommendations of the handbook. Especially we are leaving part of the wood on site, and we are using light machinery for logging. And the third one is conventional or commercial logging. We are all the dead wood is removed, and heavy machinery is being used. So there are 3 different treatments, and we are comparing between these treatments several indicators for the soil, biodiversity, the plant cover and timber, and also the economic balance of every treatment. So to finish with the challenge, I skipped the first 2 because they're too sad, but I will talk about the problem that we have to find stands, forest stands for doing our research, because as you know, as most of you know, in Catalonia, properties are very small, are usually private. So we are also fighting to find the best ecosystem indicators, to disseminate the results to the forest sector, and finally maybe to influence post-fire management policies. What we can offer is our expertise in field studies, in sampling design, and in field methods. Maybe we can provide some results at the small scale that can be used then in larger models. And well, maybe what I could say is also that we hope that our studies are relevant for taking management decisions. And finally, what we expect from the fire practitioner or research community is what we are doing today is exchange of ideas, maybe some research collaboration in soil and biodiversity studies, in finding opportunities, and maybe in setting up new study areas. And that's all. Thank you very much.